deeply, deeply obnoxious that the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, gets lumped in with his idiot uncle as somehow being problematic. A military hero who has done more to point out the corruption of the British media than almost anybody else in public life, being lumped in with a bloke who has been a disgrace to the family for decades is truly, truly absurd. Actually mentioning the Duke of Sussex, Harry and Meghan constitute massive, massive news stories as well, because they offered such a wonderful opportunity to many members of the media to paint them as, or to essentially drive pages and pages, hours and hours of journalism motivated almost entirely by the fact that one of the most senior members of the royal family had the audacity to fall in love with a woman of colour, something that drives a coach and horses, if you pardon the pun, through much of our establishment presumptions, him no longer being a prince. But the lens through which I want you to look at that question is this, okay? Why do you care? I'm not saying you shouldn't, quite the opposite. I care. I care a lot more than I expected to care. I care more about this than I have about any other royal story in 20 years, except the absolutely ludicrous targeting of Prince Harry and his wife, Meghan, for the sins of being... the sins of rejecting the ludicrous deals that his family has historically done with Fleet Street and being offered up as sacrificial lambs so they'd leave the rest of them alone. But I care about this, and I can't quite work out why. I think part of the reason I care is because of a slightly embarrassing belief in what you might call the contract. What you might call and this is embarrassing because it makes me sound hideously naive, in that in order to retain the pomp and privilege, the wealth and circumstance that the royal family maintains, hinges on, we are entitled to expect certain standards to be met in return. I don't often feel sorry for members of the royal family.
We're taking a closer look at a moment that rocked both royal watchers and the British media world, when broadcaster James O'Brien spoke out powerfully in defence of Prince Harry. His words didn't just call out the hypocrisy of the press, they laid bare the double standards that have trailed Harry and Meghan for years. O'Brien didn't hold back. He called it deeply obnoxious that Harry, a decorated soldier, humanitarian and advocate for integrity, keeps being unfairly grouped with his disgraced uncle, Prince Andrew. And honestly, he's right, because the difference between how both men are treated in the media is staggering. Let's unpack that. Prince Harry isn't just a royal, he's a man who served his country twice on the front lines of Afghanistan. He faced real danger, not in a ceremonial way, but in active combat zones. He wasn't hiding behind palace privileges or titles. He was flying Apache helicopters, shoulder to shoulder, with other soldiers. He was Captain Wales, a soldier who earned respect for his bravery, not his bloodline. And his dedication didn't end when he took off his uniform. Harry went on to create the Invictus Games, a global platform for wounded and injured service members, helping them rebuild confidence and community through sport. He's championed mental health long before it was fashionable to do so, working to erase stigma and offer real hope to people who've struggled in silence. That's a life built on service, on empathy, and on action. Now let's look at Prince Andrew. Andrew's name has become synonymous with scandal and disgrace, from his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein to that infamous BBC interview that turned into a global embarrassment. The "I can't sweat" comment became a punchline, but the story behind it was anything but funny. His choices cast a shadow over the monarchy and eroded public trust. And yet, here's the reality check. The British press has shown more anger and outrage toward Harry for marrying Meghan Markle than they ever did toward Andrew for his actions. Think about that. One man risked his life for his country. The other brought shame to it. But guess who gets vilified daily? O'Brien summed it up perfectly. It's absurd. But it's not just absurdity. It's a pattern, a revealing look at how the media chooses who to defend and who to destroy. For decades, the tabloids protected Andrew. They minimized his scandals, avoided tough headlines, and gave him endless second chances. But when Harry and Meghan stepped out of line, when they chose independence, compassion, and truth over royal convention, the knives came out instantly. And it all traces back to one thing. Harry broke the unspoken rule. He fell in love with Meghan, a confident, accomplished, biracial American woman who didn't fit the mold of what royal watchers expected. And overnight, she became their favorite target. The coverage wasn't just negative, it was vicious. Her every move was dissected, criticized, twisted. Holding her baby bump was attention-seeking. Closing her own car door was breaching protocol. Eating avocados somehow became problematic. The same gestures that were praised when Kate did them became scandalous when Meghan did. It wasn't about behavior. It was about bias, plain and simple. They mocked her family. They called her difficult, too American, too ambitious. What they meant was too different. Meghan represented change, and that frightened them. A woman of colour, entering an institution built on centuries of white aristocracy, challenged everything the old system stood for. And because of that, the press didn't just want her to fail, they needed her to. Her success would have proven that the monarchy could evolve, that diversity could be celebrated rather than feared. So they spun a story painting her as manipulative, calculating and controlling. The diva duchess, the woman who took Harry away. They labelled her a gold digger, conveniently ignoring that she had a successful career long before meeting him. They turned ordinary moments into controversies. And even when stories were proven false, like the infamous Meghan made Kate cry narrative, the corrections were buried, barely mentioned. But behind the headlines was a much darker truth. Harry and Meghan repeatedly asked the palace for help. They asked for protection against the racist undertones, the relentless harassment, and time after time they were told no, told to stay silent, told that it was just part of the royal life. But this wasn't just negative press, it was targeted abuse. It was harassment disguised as journalism. And when Meghan bravely admitted she'd struggled with her mental health and even had suicidal thoughts, the institution's response wasn't compassion, it was image control. They were more concerned about PR than about her pain. So Harry made a choice, the only choice a loving husband and father could make. He chose his family's well-being over royal protocol. He chose safety over silence. And that's what enraged the press most, because he refused to play their game. When Harry took legal action against media outlets for illegal phone hacking and fabrication, they branded him ungrateful. Imagine that. A man seeking justice being condemned for demanding accountability. James O'Brien was absolutely right when he said that Harry has done more to expose the corruption of the British media than almost anyone else. He's shining a light on how these papers manipulate public perception, how they bribe sources, twist facts, and destroy reputations for profit. Let's not forget the phone hacking scandal wasn't limited to celebrities. Ordinary citizens, grieving families, and even victims of crimes had their privacy violated. And while many people settled quietly, Harry stood his ground. He went to court. He testified publicly. He made sure the world saw the machinery behind the headlines, the backroom deals, the palace leaks, the fabricated stories planted for political or personal gain. That's why the media go after him so ruthlessly. It's not just about leaving the royal family. It's about threatening their power. He's dismantling the system from the outside, and they know it. But despite the attacks, Harry and Meghan have built something beautiful. Away from the noise, they've crafted a life defined by purpose, not protocol. Through Archewell, they're championing compassion, mental health, community leadership, and empowerment. Through Netflix and other platforms, they're telling stories that inspire healing and social awareness, not gossip or scandal. Harry continues his work with veterans, while Meghan uplifts women and girls globally. Together, they're proving that integrity and kindness can flourish outside palace walls. And perhaps most importantly, they're raising their children Archie and Lilibet with something Harry never had: peace, privacy, and normalcy. A life where birthdays aren't tabloid fodder and family moments stay sacred. That's not rebellion, that's growth, that's evolution. They've redefined what modern royalty looks like: independent, compassionate, self-directed. And, as O'Brien said, the real issue isn't with Harry or Meghan. The issue is with a press culture that rewards conformity and punishes authenticity. Because when royals follow the script, they're praised. But when they tell the truth, they're punished. The moment someone refuses to smile through the pain, refuses to stay silent in the face of injustice, they're branded difficult or disrespectful. And Harry and Meghan refuse to play that game. The tabloids can't stand it because their outrage is their business. Every angry headline, every misleading story brings in clicks, views, money. The hate is profitable. The Sussexes became their golden goose of controversy. But truth has a way of cutting through noise, and voices like James O'Brien remind the public of that. There are still journalists and citizens who see what's happening, who recognise the double standards, and who refuse to be manipulated. So if you stand for fairness, for empathy, for the right to live freely without being torn down, you stand with Harry and Meghan. This isn't just about one couple. It's about what kind of world we want to live in, one that values truth over tabloids, humanity over headlines. Every person who speaks up, who challenges lies, who defends integrity, becomes part of that change. Every view, every comment, every share helps push back against a media machine that thrives on hate. Because, as O'Brien reminded us, not every voice in the media is blind. Some still see clearly. Some still tell the truth. And that's where we come in as a community that refuses to let falsehoods win. We choose compassion over cruelty. We amplify justice over jealousy. Harry and Meghan's story isn't a fall from grace. It's a rise into freedom. It's a reminder that choosing love, truth, and peace doesn't make you a rebel, it makes you brave. And here, on Sussex Squaddies, we'll keep celebrating that courage. Because their journey isn't ending, it's just getting started.